I'm here with Pete Littlechild. He is the community coordinator of Albany Road Baptist Church. He is my colleague. We work together. We are the dynamic duo, or the terrible twins, or however you like to see us in the life of the church. And I always thought that I was the grit in the oyster, but I think I found somebody that's grittier than me. So it's a real joy to have you with us as we think about Future Church. And I have to say, it's a real joy to work with you. It's been a real privilege. So as we think about the future of the church, Pete, give us an indication as to how you see the church, say in 10 years' time, 15 years' time. How do you think it's got to become?
I mean, I think, as a church, I don't know about other churches, but I think we are moving very much away from a traditional Sunday model of church. You know, you turn up, you park your car in a car park, you wander in, go to the service, jump in your car and go home. And that's the only engagement you have with church. You know, it's got to be an all-encompassing lifestyle, really. It's going to be 7 days a week. Um, in fact, it's probably moving backwards, if anything, to Acts, to the beginning of church,
Okay.
where people are living, sharing food, experiencing life together, sharing relationship, and, that being, might even be their employment, but to sort of holistically live as a Christian, not just turn up to a service, go, all right, okay, and then, sit back in the car and maybe ponder it, for the rest of the week, and then turn up next week. But actually, as you know me, Richard, I'm a doer, but it's, to actually get out, get dirty, and get involved with whatever your gifting is, whatever your skill is, and be driven by that. I think COVID taught us a lot as well, with people's unwillingness to settle for the rat race. Going, well, what am I actually living for? Doing a nine
Okay.
to
Yeah.
five.
Yeah.
What am I? I'm going to work. I'm grinding it out. I come home, spend a couple of hours with the kids. So even people, like yourself, who are now transferring some of their work to home because it's more comfortable, because it gives them better times to think, it engages others more. So yeah, I think the whole model of church has got to change, because it's all about relevance. And if you're not going to be relevant to your community, and you're not going to be relevant to those who worship with you, then you might as well just close your doors now, really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And do you think, as part of your role, you are involved in part of we're a Baptist church, we have an association. You're involved with the association, and you get to see what's going on in other churches. Now, I don't want you to be specific about any particular church, but as you look at that, as you look at applications for funding and things like that, do you think that's what church is now? Because it strikes me it's very easy, isn't it, for us to look at the church that we're a part of and use us as a benchmark and a model for change. And that's really quite unhelpful. And it's very easy to think that we're the norm when, I was talking to a lady yesterday. She comes from a Catholic church, and she said to me, this is an amazing church, meaning the church that you and I are a part of. And I went, oh, why do you say that? She said, well, it's a church like I've never been to before. And I said, so what's your church background? And she said, oh, I'm Catholic. We pitch up on a Sunday, we stay for the Mass, and then we disappear again. And barring confession, we don't darken the doorsteps again until the following Sunday. And I said to her, so why do you think we're different? She said, well, look at what I'm at. Look at what we're doing. I don't know many churches that would be doing this sort of stuff. Is that true? And, as you look at those churches, would you say that we've got a long way to go, or do you think we're almost there?
I'd say I'm glad I'm not a Catholic, because I'd probably have to stay till next Sunday in the confessional box. But
I
um,
know you. That's true.
oh dear, I love a few laws to follow. Um, I don't think you're ever there, are you? Let's be
No.
honest. I think, the whole point, if you're ever satisfied with where you are, then again, you've already lost the dream, haven't you? And striving to do better. Are we further than we were? Absolutely. You
Yes.
know, um, are we ever going to be satisfied? I hope not.
No. Yeah.
We've got a building and we're looking, you know, as you know, we're in the middle of this sort of massive building redevelopment, which has taken 6 years now to get to the point. I mean, we couldn't imagine 5 years ago actually where we are now, the
No, that's
impact,
true.
the thought of how the building's going to operate, what we're going to do, the social need we're meeting, the funding we've received, all those things that we've been blessed with, and actually had to learn as well. Um, that actually I think if you ever get to the point where you go, oh, that's it, this is perfect church, we've made it, think again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
change in the
Yeah.
next week. They say a week in politics is long, and I think, church is a bit like that sometimes,
Yeah.
although
Yeah.
we
Absolutely.
do we do pontificate far too much. But I think that's not so much because of the willingness to want to do things, but it's about hearts and minds and bringing people along with you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because the minute you stand still, the minute you think you've made it, you start going backwards. Almost immediately, you start going backwards. You have to keep pressing on, don't you? And pressing in. And you're right. I think part of my role in the church is about hearts and minds. It's about it. Sometimes I finish a Sunday and I think, why am I trying to persuade people to do what they already know that they should be doing but aren't? And it can become quite frustrating. And then you look at your own life and think, well, I can hardly talk. So, and yeah, so it is the big challenge, isn't it? Because whilst you say, the traditional model, we still have the vestiges in the life of the church that we serve of the traditional model. We still have people that pitch up on a Sunday, and the only time we see them on a Sunday is for an hour and a half. And if it goes over by 2 minutes, they are a little disgruntled that they've been inconvenienced and have to stay that 2 minutes longer. And I don't say that uncharitably, because actually we're glad to have them and they are precious to us without a doubt. But you do want to see them move forward. You do want to see them develop in their discipleship and in their growth and their relationship with Jesus. Um, and and you're right. We're never going to be satisfied. I mean, partly it's in our nature to be that way inclined. But when you think about that, when you think about that's the ideal, that's the goal, how do you think? What are the steps? If you were talking to somebody that knows nothing about this, what are the steps? 3 or 4 steps that you'd say you have to put in place in order to get there?
To get where?
To that place where that you've described, where the church is 24/7, that people are actually integrating their faith with their life and their life with their faith, and one comes out of the other in both directions. And they're coming to worship on a Sunday not to get their fill up, but to unload, really, to unload the goodness of God in the previous week. Because I think that's what worship should be about anyway. So,
I think so. As a church, I think the leadership,
okay.
you've got to follow from the front. You've got to be the spearhead. You know,
Yeah.
if you're not doing it, other people aren't going to follow you. If you don't choose your career path by what you think God is asking you to do, then why expect anybody else to?
Yeah.
Um, uh, you know, so I think leadership is key. If you haven't got a leadership where you're on board and you might not all want the same things, but you're all facing the same direction and
Yeah.
you're all kicking. Some faster than
Yeah.
others. That's natural, same as the congregation. But I think that's probably number one is the leadership, the willingness to want to be that place, that church. Um, I think the second thing, I mean, you know me, I'm biased into all things community and and helping people. So I would say be to become an outward looking church
Yeah.
rather than an inward looking church, so that you're doing things not for your own end but for other people. Um, And C, I think along the same lines, but actually it's about knowing. You might think you know your community. You might think you know your local authority. You might think you know local charities or businesses that surround your church, you know, but have you actually stopped? Have you reflected? Have you, you know, is everything you do as a church done for a purpose
Yeah.
to help somebody, to show God's love, to advance somebody's faith? Um, and I think you need to strategically and purposefully act in such a way that you're all headed in the same direction. You've all got the same goal. You're not doing it for your own ends. You're doing it for your community, and you know what you're doing and why you're doing it purposefully.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting how people come to church, come to your church, because they're excited by what you do, or they're excited by what they see and its potential for the future. And then the minute they're in, they want to change it. They want to change it to be like the church they just left, or what they've liked about church in the past. And you have to sort of smile and go, that's great, but that's not our vision. That's not the direction of travel we're on, and be willing to run the risk of them going, well, then you're not for me. I mean, they never say it, but they just don't appear the next Sunday. And I often think that church has got into such a maintenance mentality that we are so desperate to have new people come through the door that we almost allow ourselves to become a chameleon. And therefore we accomplish nothing because we're trying to be all things to all people and we reach no one. And that seems to me to be really quite important, that your values, you are value driven, and that you've established over the long haul with the leadership, with the congregation, what we're going to stand for. And you unapologetically stand for that. You broadcast it. You talk about it often. And we had a conversation with the leaders last night about the fact that we haven't broadcasted it enough recently because we've been so preoccupied with buildings and all the other stuff that goes into ministerial life. But you're absolutely right. If we can't get everybody on board, then we're always surrendering the direction of travel to the minority voice that will always shout louder than anybody else. And that seems to be a bit of a shame to me. Yeah, absolutely. So if that's B, what's C? Is there a C?
I did it. I did A, B, and C.
Oh, okay. Oh, I missed the C. Apologies.
A was leadership.
Yeah.
B was to be an outward-looking church, and then C was to do everything with strategy and purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Got it. And I'm really grateful for that. That's really helpful. I think that's really exciting. And if anybody has any questions, are you happy for them to contact you and, have a bit of a chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, we've always had this philosophy of, if we've got something good, we'll give it away. And the reason for that is because we went down to Brighton once, didn't we? And went to see something that another church was doing, and they were so generous to us. They literally gave the project to us. Now, maybe it was because we were in Cardiff, they were in Brighton, and there was no way that we were competition. But I don't believe that. I believe that grace defined them. And we were so blessed by the project we inherited from them. And we want to be that blessing without a doubt to others and learn in the process.
That's manifested itself with us, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Learning
yeah,
from others. We've got other projects that we've done, and we've gone, here's the entire package. You don't have to
yeah,
think for it. This is yes, it's got to be your project, but actually here's the basis to make a start. And if you want any help or any support, we're happy to do that. And I think
yeah.
that's what being Christian family is about, isn't it? Is sharing resource, sharing ideas, and it's not going to be in every church. It's not going to be
No,
relevant anyway
no.
because different social needs in different areas are going to be different. But where they are similar, then it's great to have a leg up to start, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess in terms of the 3 points that you've made, one of the real litmus tests to me that we're actually making progress is what's happened just recently. Recently we've been having members of the congregation come to us and say, I've got this idea. and they come up with a project. You know, we've got a project called Hope in Mental Health that basically goes into the local hospital and provides basic hygiene items for those who are admitted to the crisis care unit, who sometimes come with nothing. You know, they are in crisis. And to have something really nice, you know, nice smellies, nice shampoo, you know, nice shower gel, just some basic clothing items to make them feel like they've got some dignity. And that came out of somebody's heart and mind. It came out of the congregation. We didn't invent that. And then recently we've got a lady that comes out of an alcoholic background, is doing brilliantly and has come to faith in Christ, recently baptized, wants to start a Celebrate Recovery group. And it's been fantastic to see her enthusiasm and to come alongside her and see that begin to take shape. And we're constantly looking to encourage people into their calling and into their gifting and into their passion and talents and subsidize that both financially and with volunteers and energy. And that to me seems like the litmus for what you're saying. It's leadership that's in a different form because we're permission giving as leaders. We're not trying to control. It's strategic because it's engaging with a particular need, and it's releasing people that we might do it together. And one of the convictions I've always had is God has given you all the resources in your congregation right now to make your next step. The problem is the leadership tends to think if we don't do it, it's got no legitimacy. And that's a real shame because, you know, I mean, I've known churches. In fact, I went to a church once where the person that was helping me on a Sunday was a senior solicitor, was a senior solicitor in the City of London. And the only thing that the church would offer that person to do was something really basic on a Sunday. And you're thinking, this is crazy.
But the other thing I would say as well is it doesn't have to be in your church.
No, expand that,
You know,
unpack that.
well, you know, if somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, do you know what? I got a real heart and passion for working with homeless people," for example, I don't go, "Oh, great, let's start a homeless project." I go, "Well, I'm well connected enough within the community to know where the homeless projects are. Go and bless them. You know, go to
Yeah,
this church and help them, or you know, there's people feeding people on the streets. There's, you know, it doesn't even have to be a Christian charity or a Christian church or an organization. You know, it can just be somewhere in society that they feel that that's their passion, they're calling about.
yes,
You know, don't feel like you've got to keep everybody, you know, in fact, do the polar opposite. Open the
yes,
doors and allow
yeah.
them to go out and to, you know, to infiltrate society with their heart and their love of God.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when they show up on a Sunday and you say, anybody got any good news stories from this week? They are sharing some blinders because they are out there doing it. And we're just getting into the start of that, aren't we? So that's really exciting. Hey, thanks, Pete. That's really helpful. Again, loads of stuff there, loads of stuff to tease out and to think through. And I'm really grateful to you for giving us the time. I'm really grateful to you for the privilege of working with you. It's an absolute joy. It really is. Yeah. Some days you're the only thing that keeps me going in ministry.
Healing's mutual, trust me.